In this project, we use faux carbon cloth and heat-resistant epoxy to transform wood into a custom work surface. This project came out outstanding.
I think that's gonna be awesome, man. Holy cow.
Learn right now from start to finish how we created this custom shape from scratch. From our wood shop to our showroom, let's do this. Remember, when you subscribe to our channel, click on the red subscribe button and be sure to ring the bell so you get notified every time we have a new video. Thanks again.
Here we go.
To build the core of our table, we're going to use 3/4 inch MDF, medium density fiberboard. We'll cut this to the size of our cloth and decide the shape after it's cut.
Carbon fiber table. What shape do you make it? Let us know in the comments below, what shape do you make a carbon fiber table? This is how much carbon fiber we have with an overhang. What do we do?
I like that better than a square.
I totally do.
Yeah.
I kind of like that, man.
What's wrong with it?
Okay, first draft.
Yeah.
Nailed it. I need a new jigsaw. The old Black & Decker is on its last leg. I think I got this at Walmart 15 years ago. So you can see I didn't stay on that line a lot. I used it as my inspiration, but I wanted to maximize the width of the cloth that we had. So I went pretty big. I got a little bit of chigger from my jigsaw. I'm gonna get a sander, make it smooth. Let's do it.
I'm just progressively going through some sandpaper to make my MDF smooth. Finish with about 220 grit.
I really want to double the edge up, okay? So that's why I sanded right now, is because I want a smooth edge so I could run a bearing router and it'll follow that nicely. But what I got to do is not try to make curves underneath. I'm going to just rip strips, connect them the best that I can, and then we'll router that overhang and it'll make a perfectly flush drop edge. Make sense? I'm gonna get my pin gun with 23 gauge pin nails and some Titebond 2 wood glue, and we'll make our drop edge. Where's the pin gun? There it is. Pin gun. So I'm going to make sure that my wood overhangs my table. So I don't want it flush. I'm going to bring it just over so I can router it. Make sure there's no void there. I'll trace a line. This will tell me where to glue my piece, and we'll shoot it down. Just flip that over. You want to keep that clean so your router will follow it really nicely. There we go. Let's just go right around that perimeter.
The combination of wood glue and pin nails is a great long-term hold.
Next piece. It needs to be a little bit steeper. See, that's plenty of meat there. That's what you want. Let's do it.
We'll utilize our straight router bit with a top bearing to create a nice flush cut. We're going to do multiple passes so that we get a really clean edge.
Hey! I love using foam as my table finish surface for my cutting and routering areas. I like using it because foam doesn't hurt my router bits, it doesn't prematurely wear them out, plus it supports my project 100%. As I was routering this, these pieces didn't chip out. The weight of this hanging piece, it didn't just pull my piece apart right at the end. Everything was supported. I really like using foam as that tabletop base. Look at that. I got my drop edge ready. If that's not a custom shape, I don't know what is.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Here we're using our 50 grit metal sanding disc. We'll then switch to our random orbital sander and we'll make a nice, flat, smooth edge and be ready to start applying our carbon fiber cloth.
All right, let's switch out our router bit to a round over right there. We'll use that one. All right, what I like to do is test this on a scrap first. So I'll grab a scrap of MDF. I'll make sure that I got my router set the proper depth. See that lip? I don't want a lip on that. So I'm going to adjust this just a little bit more. Perfect.
I like to utilize a 1/4 inch round over bit with a bottom bearing so I could follow my shape and create a nice eased edge so everything will flow properly.
All right, where we got our drop edge, we did a really cool job. You know, it would have been a lot easier to just laminate two pieces together, but sometimes you're gonna need a drop edge where you have a big island with the radius and you're gonna need to create a drop edge. In this case, we created a very complicated drop edge, no problem. I hope you guys enjoyed that content. Wherever I splice or butt joint pieces together, I do have wood glue in those joints, but if you have any kind of a void or anything like that, I'm gonna pre-fill that with some super glue and accelerator. It'll dry in 10 seconds and then I'm gonna sand it, okay? And that's gonna give me a perfect fill. In this case, I really don't need to do that because I'm covering this with cloth, and so it's gonna hide anything like that. But let's say you were just gonna paint and primer and then epoxy this. You would wanna get everything either bondoed or super glue those joints, but get every joint nice and flush first. Let's go grab our cloth and see what it's gonna look like over the top. Make a decision on what color we're gonna go with. All right, we got red and black. I really like both of these. You know, the black is really traditional. It's kind of what that look is. The red is really kind of new age. I like it a lot. Let me know in the comments below, what would you choose, black or red? I've seen a lot of black. I think I'm leaning towards red. We might use this black on another project, but let's lay it over our shape and see what's gonna happen here. Save your old epoxy mixing containers. You'll find all kinds of uses. If you check this out over here, they're great to hold screws. They're really heavy duty. I also use them to lift things up off the deck. If I want to test how this fiber is going to lay over my piece here, I don't want it flush to my plywood. I want to bring it up in the air and then droop it down. Let's check this out. I really think that's going to be, awesome, man. Holy cow. Look at that, man. I like that. I'm very excited for this.
For the first step in the epoxy, we're going to utilize our quick coat. We're going to apply this with a squeegee on the raw MDF. We only need a thin coat because this cloth is going to stick to a nice tacky epoxy, and then we're going to squeegee off any excess to get a tight fit. We'll roll it over that preformed edge, and we're excited to see the results. We only needed about 1 ounce per square foot. We'll use any excess on the edges. Be sure to coat those edges because that's what's going to hold the cloth nice and tight.
I'm just making sure I got enough epoxy on the edges. I don't want any dry spots where the fiber doesn't want to stick. So just rubbing that out by hand, and then I'm going to droop our cloth over. I kept my cloth in the same direction that it was sitting on the piece. I had it laid out where I wanted it, so I kept that. I'm going to add just a little bit more epoxy here, but I can just put the rest of this over that cloth, and it's going to seep through anyways. It's just going to be saturated on the bottom as well as the top. Let's do it. This is going to be really fun. Holy cow. Yeah, it's biting really good. I like that. Watch, I mean, it's definitely easy to apply. I like that round over. Boy, that makes that easy. Look at that.
This coat of epoxy will be ready for the next step in about 3 hours because it is our quick coat and it's fast drying.
All right, what I'm doing now is just dragging any of the excess epoxy off of the surface to get a nice tight fit, and I'm not going to leave any excess underneath that might cause a wrinkle or a hump, and it's working out great. I'm really glad that I routed those edges with that 1/4 inch roundover bit. I think it's making this process a lot easier. I could really just envision a designer falling in love with this idea. I mean, you could take cloth or a print or a decal or whatever it is you want. You could do this and then router in a company's logo. Maybe they manufacture something super industrial, or you know, you can really make fun signage, and the possibilities are endless with this technique. It's just fun. It's something totally different than applying different color. It's already kind of done for me. It's just getting it tight to my project and working it out. You can feel the quick coat starting to get more gel, and it's retaining that a little easier. So I think sitting here and babysitting this is a good idea too. I really like quick coat on this step, but just apply it thin. Remember, thin to win. All right, it's been a few hours. This sucker it's not even tacky anymore. I really like it. It's totally ready to go. You can see it's still really pliable. It's really fresh. It was about 2.5 hours ago that we finished up. We're going to apply our normal Stone Coat Countertop Epoxy. We're going to use our 1/8 by 1/8 square notch trowel. We'll apply that, we'll chop it, we'll torch it just like a normal flood coat, and we'll probably have to apply a couple of coats before all of the texture of this fiber is gone. So let's get started on that first flood coat. That's working. Another thing you want to do with your torch, turn it upside down, blow everything out of it, so when I come to the fresh epoxy, there's no dust that spits into it. Part B, then part A. Be sure to slow the drill down. Rub the bottom and the sides of the bucket, then pull the drill attachment up off the bottom of your mixing container and go ahead and pick up the speed. Be sure to scrape the edges and you'll get a really good mixture.
We mix our normal Stone Coat Countertop Epoxy with the drill paddle. We do it for about 2 minutes. Our room temperature is ideally 70 to 80 degrees.
All right, let's apply the epoxy. We'll trowel it out, we'll chop it, we'll torch it 3 times. Make sure it's clear. I am going to mix everything right here on the surface again. Wow, this is going to look so awesome. Holy cow, this is really cool. Oh my gosh. It's like a lens because it's getting oblong and then laying out, but it's really three-dimensional. This is awesome, man. You see that? Okay, let's trowel this sucker out. I'm not gonna go all the way to the edge just yet. I'm just gonna start getting everything out even.
This is our first flood coat. We use 3 ounces per square foot for our flood coat and our 1/8 by 1/8 square notch trowel. This leaves the perfect amount of material on our surface.
Chop it, baby. Here we go. This is awesome. I really like the shape. I'm glad we did that.
Utilize the chop brush to break any surface tension and brush your edges out like a pro.
Those edges stuck really good for me. What I'm gonna do is build up a couple coats and then I'll cut that flush before my final coat. But I'm not worried about getting that cloth off right now. All right guys, how do you get bubbles out? We're gonna use the torch and we're gonna simply sweep the surface. You can use a heat gun, you can use different types of solvents. We really like the torch because it works so fast and you're not introducing solvent to the surface. Dang! That is sick!
I can see you perfectly in the piece too.
That flood coat was super easy. I'm gonna finish with my hand across these edges. This surface is just beautiful. I love it. Super easy to do. We're gonna let this set up and we'll come back tomorrow. We'll sand it and we'll do an additional flood coat. All right, it's all dry. What we're gonna do is take this table and go cut off the apron, the excess fiber that's hanging down. We're gonna snip it off, sand it, and we're ready for our next flood coat. Let's do this. Woo!
A metal cutoff wheel in conjunction with our angle grinder is the perfect tool to remove the excess cloth from our project.
Here we go.
We did an initial rough cut and then we come back and trim it nice and flush as a second pass. Finally, we finish sand it so everything's nice to the touch. We'll switch to our random orbital sander and sand the surface and the edges of our project with 220 grit sandpaper. We do this to promote a mechanical bond between each epoxy coat. Be sure to wipe the dust.
We did a unique project here, but no matter what kind of project you're doing with epoxy, whether it's countertops or this kind of a project, the second clear coat is the same. You're gonna sand, you'll make sure you get that good mechanical bond, you'll wipe the dust, and then you're ready to apply that next coat. When you go to sand the edges, do the roundovers by hand and turn the speed down on the sander so you don't burn through any of those edges. All right guys, here's a pro tip for you. Always finish sanding the surface last. I put some hand scratches in the surface because of sanding that roundover, and I'm gonna remove that with the random orbital sander right now. We'll finish sand with 220 grit. Let's go put a clear coat on this thing and see how it looks. Sweet. Okay, let's go get some epoxy. You could use a heat gun too if you'd like. Don't forget your gloves either. The reason that we use a 1/8 by 1/8 square notch trowel when applying our epoxy is because it leaves the proper amount on the surface with no guessing. I'm going to trowel it out and then I'll chop it to remove any trowel marks. Even though we're doing a clear coat, you can get an iridescent evidence that you troweled this. So the chopping will remove any of that evidence. It'll lay out crystal clear. It'll look smooth as glass, and your clear coat will be very professional. That is so beautiful. All right, what I'm going to do now is just scrape any excess out of the bucket into the mass of epoxy. And the reason I put it right in the middle is because then I'll use my trowel to mix any of that I scraped into the mass, so I get a good mix. We're going to trowel this out close to the edges. I'll get everything even, and then I'll push it over the edge. Don't go over the edge too soon and waste any epoxy. Remember, you only need 3 ounces per square foot on your flood coats. That's part A and part B combined, equaling 3 ounces per square foot. We've now pushed everything right up to the edge. We're going to use everything left over, push it over the edge. That's going to really give us our material to brush on those edges. You'll have these drips and spots coming down, and that's your reservoir to do your edges. Be sure to prime your brush so you don't get a dry brush starting when you chop, because you'll actually pull more epoxy up there and it could leave a little divot because there's not enough epoxy to level out. Also, remove any loose bristles before you prime that brush. When you chop the surface, you're going to chop it just as you would when you did color. You're going to do it randomly, not in rows and not in a geometric fashion. Just be random about it and everything is going to lay out nice. Pro tip, guys, if you do everything consistently, if you have a pattern about the way that you do things, your jobs are going to come out more consistent, more professional. When you know what's going to happen, you can predict the future because of experience. That's when you get real professional results. Chopping the surface also guarantees that I'm mixing it one final time. I mixed it in the bucket, I used a drill, I scraped the sides, I mixed it on the surface, I used that trowel, that helped mix it, and then finally I'm mixing it with the brush. Those 3 punches together, 1, 2, 3, really give you a good consistent finish that you know is mixed properly, no sticky spots. All right, let's do those edges now. As you can see, everything's rolled down those edges, and we're just going to use this epoxy to brush along those surfaces. I'm going to grab my torch, but the first thing I'm going to do is wipe my hands. I don't want to get epoxy that's on my gloves on my torch, because those buttons will fill up with epoxy and it's really hard to use your torch at that point. So take a second, clean your hands, and I'm not in a hurry because I have plenty of working time. I'm not worried this is going to set up on me really fast. Now that I have those initial bubbles popped, I'll wait a couple of minutes and I'll do it again, and then a third time. I'll check, make sure there's no air left in the surface and left in that epoxy. I can see a little bit of fog because there's a little bit of air in there. Now, after that initial popping, when it's all these big bubbles, you're not going to have that happen again. It's going to be tiny bubbles, but don't let that fool you. There's still air in the surface. So practice on sample boards. Know that you get that air out. All right, guys, let's do a recap. What did we learn from doing this project? If I were to do this again, I would probably take 2 pieces of MDF and laminate them together, draw out my shape, and cut it as one piece. That would have been faster than creating a drop edge, but it was a challenge to create a drop edge. I hope you got some value out of that, so it teaches you in the future on any curve or any abnormal shape, it's still possible to create that drop edge when necessary. Another thing that I learned is this cloth is fun to work with. I could take this on a river table and maybe put a modern technique into classic furniture. I could bring a piece of carbon fiber across something to give it that design element to take your project, make it unique, and take it to the next level. This is a fun thing to do. It wasn't very hard. I learned that I will most definitely be working with this again. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments below, what did you like about it and what did you not like about it. Visit us anytime at stonecoatcountertops.com, and we'll see you on the next video.